Welcome to Paranormal Files Into the Darkness. I am your host, Sean Wagner. Tonight, Liz and I will be talking demonology with paranormal researcher, Catholic demonologist, and Catholic deacon James Annitto. You can check it out right now. All right, welcome. First of all, time to bring on my lovely co-host, Liz. How you doing, Liz?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you handling the heat?
Well, I like it hot, but some of these days tend to be a little too hot for me.
Yeah, it's I usually try not to, but I have the air conditioner running just off to the side here, just in case it's picked up by the microphone. Also, this show is a super chat. Please give us a like and share on Facebook, or thumbs up, subscribe, and also hit the bell to be notified of future broadcasts on YouTube and share as well there. Thank you. We have a great guest tonight. What do you think of our guest, Liz?
I am super excited about this. You know how much I love demonology cases.
Oh, yes. That's a great topic. And we're fortunate to have someone. And now for the introduction. He was ordained a deacon and is a demonologist who has worked alongside many other specialists in the field. James is also a paranormal investigator and researcher for Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation, PPRI. Also Sanctuary Paranormal, and the owner of the Dominion Ministry. He has been in the paranormal field since the early age of 15, investigating graveyards and legendary surroundings in the New England area, such as Mercy Brown, Ladd School, USS Salem, and Slater Mill. His knowledge of the paranormal came from reading many books in his early years, also watching Unsolved Mysteries, Scariest Places on Earth, and then eventually Ghost Hunters, increased his interest and knowledge of the field. His website is jamesannitto.com. His Facebook account is www.facebook.com/demonologyj. He's also the host of the podcast True Evil. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest is James Annitto.
Hey guys.
How you doing, James?
Hey, pretty good surviving this heat. How about you guys?
Good, thanks.
Yes, doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's time. It's time for our. We do a toast. It's time for our toast. And do you have something to toast with? Awesome.
Me too.
As always, I have my blue cup, but this time I must add, I have just fruit punch in it, but it's still something.
Same old water.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing wrong with water. It's good because the heat is good to hydrate. For everyone who works during the week, like most of us do.
Cheers.
All right, James, I followed your Facebook posts lately.
Thank you.
And I gotta ask, how are you doing health wise?
So I wish good. I have, fortunately, I've been going. Fortunately, they've figured out what's probably the cause of all these health issues. But I've been having health issues for the past 8 months, in and out of the hospital. And so many different opinions. But of course, they've come out after seeing a cardiologist and then an electrophysiologist. They've come to determine I have an electrical issue with my heart. So I have a procedure on Monday, this coming Monday, for my heart. And I'm a little nervous, of course, because I've never been sedated in my life. And, I know I'm in the best region for cardiology in the country, in Northeast, New England area, with some of the leading cardiologists in the world. But still, it's nerve-wracking, especially as somebody that doesn't like to be, sedated or hasn't been. It's scary. And it's my heart, like the one thing we need beside our brain to really survive. So it's been difficult, but I always keep a smile on my face. I have 2 little ones, and I have a good life, so I can't complain. So I have to tackle it, every step that I can.
Well, that's awesome. Or not awesome, but it's good that
It's all right.
it's good that you have people. Some of the best people there is taking care of you. That's what.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
That's what I meant. It's good. It's good in
No,
that
yeah,
regard.
no, definitely. And when you have kids too, when you have kids, this is not for everybody's perspective because unfortunately there's some lousy parents out there. But for me, when my kids are my driving force, and I want to be healthy, and I want to make sure that I'm all right. And I know God, I believe in God, but God has there's a decision at any point in time. Monday could be my last day. Knock on wood, it's not. But I want to try to get better and stronger for my children, so they have their dad and I have them. They're my driving force.
And that's certainly an excellent reason, and that's important. This may be a crazy question, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there any chance that do you think it's all like genes or for your issue, or could demonology had any impact on it by chance?
Some people would say yes, for sure. I think I have had a few people throughout these 8 months say, "Oh, you have an attachment, you have this and that," and logically, I could have. I do a lot of severe cases, and I go to a lot of haunted locations doing events, and it's quite possible. But I'm a very objective person, and I also don't jump to the paranormal conclusion very easily, and somewhat rarely if I do. But yeah, it could have been something like that. But I try not to focus on that because people tend to forget on haunting by the root word. If you focus on it, that's how haunting kind of domino effects and increases, especially an attachment or even a demonic infestation. The more you give it attention, the more that it will kind of unwhirl in your life. So I try not to focus on that, and I try to focus on just bettering myself. Checking off the medical boxes, becoming better in tune with my spirituality and myself, and having love in my heart and agape, which is the true love of God. Having these things, I don't focus on that. If it is, then I'll go out on my shield, loving God and loving my family, loving myself. So that's what's important for me. So I don't know. Of course, that electrical issues, I don't think is genetic. It just can happen. To be honest, and I don't want to harp on this too long, but from what I understand, a lot of people, I think it might be AFib, but a lot of people that have gotten what I've gotten has occurred after the COVID vaccinations, and I have been vaccinated. And lost a fellow investigator, Andre Courier, who I started my first group with, Ghost Hunter Supernatural Truth. 3 days after he got the booster shot, his heart gave out, basically exploded. So I'm not going to harp on that wagon because I'm not medical. I'm not a medical professional. But I feel like maybe my pathway is maybe from that avenue than anything spiritual.
That sounds good. But also, what made you want to be a demonologist?
I went to a band camp one time, and no, just kidding. So logistically, I never really wanted to become one. Like I always knew of Ed Warren, Father Malachi Martin, Bishop Canna, some of these greats, because I've always been enthralled into the paranormal world. Like I love, you said Unsolved Mysteries, Ghost Hunters. I'd never list it, but I always talk about it. But I love Scooby Doo. It's one of the greatest shows that precursor our kind of paranormal investigation phenomena, and I've really always been entangled into it. But the biggest thing that really kind of got me involved in the paranormal was I actually had disdain for God. I actually was maybe agnostic or atheist at one point in my life when I was a child because I had a very traumatic childhood. I never dealt with a haunting in my youth, and I'm thankful I didn't.
Uh-oh. Did he freeze, or is that?
I think so.
Is that? All right. He should be back just momentarily, I'd imagine. So while we're waiting, also on this Saturday, we are going to be going back out to do a paranormal investigation as well.
Right. I'm really looking forward to that. We haven't been out in a while, so it should be good. Well, I haven't been out in a while, so
I've been out on a few every once in a while.
yeah.
But it'd be nice to get back out with you as well. We're going to a place in Lancaster County. It should be a good place. All
Don't give me
right.
too many hints about it, because don't give me too much information about it, because you know how I get about that.
That's exactly right. Yes, I don't want to say too much more beyond that. Although the building obviously is old, and it's in
Mhm.
an old town, we can say that.
Okay.
And also, since we are talking demonology, you've done an investigation or two that was related to that.
Yeah, I used to do a whole bunch with with Kevin's group.
I think we have him back actually now too.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. All right. Are you there, James?
Yeah, sorry.
Welcome back.
I guess from the heat, maybe my computer overheated and shut off on me. So never happened before. Oddly enough, speaking about what I have, but this never happened before. A lot of people say that would be maybe paranormal, but I think it's just heat, unfortunately. So yeah, where I was leaving off is that when I was a child, basically I was agnostic or atheist. Some people would coin it. I would like to call myself a Darwinist. I loved evolution. I loved biology and science. I loved an explanation of how we have developed as human society. Either if it's as fish, which is probably the true evolutionary track if you follow biology, more than just monkeys. But the same, or apes, sorry. But in the same form, I was always enthralled in that, and I was also questionable to why I was dealt with a traumatic situation in my past. And then I was adopted, of course, and my adopted parents were Lutheran, and of course I'd have to go to Bible study every Sunday and hear how God is so great, and so kind of enabled questioning in my head. So as soon as I was able to kind of understand literature and read and do my own research at the library, I started picking up a lot of these books about biology, about theology, about other religions. And it's really ever since then become like a true love of mine. Now I have a different perspective. I've been ordained in 2 different Christian denominations. And I definitely have and believe for God. I have a belief in God now through the things that I've seen and the trials and tribulations that I have faced. But demonology basically came from having some understanding of, like I said, Ed Warren and all these other people. But really, the full catapult into it was that ghost hunters, both Carl and Keith Johnson, who are from Rhode Island, the twin brothers in demonology, very fascinating minds. They were first investigators in the Conjuring House in 1973. I had met Keith at one point before I met Carl, and really talking to them, and then working with Carl, a part of his group as a tech manager later on. I really became kind of excited about this other avenue, about helping people in a different form and fashion. Like, I was an investigator and a researcher, so my basic inkling of work would be, of course, as you guys know, as an investigator or a researcher, is find out the history, collect data to determine if or if not there's paranormal activity. And sometimes it's hard to come up with that conclusion. You can have experiences, maybe no data at all. But really what had happened is I started getting involved with residential cases instead of external locations or ghost hunts, as people call them, or just investigations in haunted locations. And I started doing residentials, and eventually, with my group Ghost, we've started coming across people that wanted help, that wanted an attempt at crossing over a blessing or a cleansing. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I'm an investigator. I don't even know anybody really that I feel comfortable bringing in, because I didn't have the rapport and reputation I do now. So, I started going down that avenue and started kind of mentoring under Carl, and I started getting into ministry work. I was then, I became a pastoral assistant for the Church of Christ, later ordained through them. So I was starting to do ministry work, and that's really kind of between ministry work and my love for demonology and theology and the paranormal and the full circumference of it. I really just started getting into demonology, and it's something I love. I love amartology, which is the study of sin. I love anything that has to do with good and evil. Anything that had Epicurus, theodicies, anything with that, I love. So I really just fell in love with it, and now I'm so heavily involved in it. And that's really kind of what led me to demonology. It's a longer story that I can play the tune to, but it's a quick summary of what's led me to now.
You did talk a little bit, but about some of your mentors, but also any books you read along the way, and the authors of them.
Yeah, so some of the authors that I really have kind of played to my heart is, I said, Father Malachi Martin. Hostage to the Devil is one of the greats. Another great, and some people love him, some people don't. But he was the chief exorcist of the Roman Catholic Church for so long, and it was Father Gabriel North. His book, An Exorcist Tells a Story, is one of the utmost favorite books I've ever read. It's unless you're Catholic, it really does play kind of different heartstrings than people are ready to kind of digest. But at the same time, I tell everybody, if you want to get into demonology, that's one of your first books you should read, because it's going to expand your mind. It's going to also maybe question certain things, or maybe question yourself, or maybe not even agree with what Father Gabriel North is saying. But it's definitely a needed testament. He has said to have done over 100,000 exorcisms in his 47 years of being an exorcist, and it's a hell of a long time. And then his, of course, his mentor, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he was of a long lineage too, and one of the greats. But I'd say Father Gabriel North, Father Malachi Martin, anything Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I love Michelle Bellin with her Dictionary of Demonology. There's so many great testaments out there. Of course, one of my favorites, and most people can't read it because they're unfortunately there's kind of translated versions to our English, but I love the original primer of demonology, and the first use of the word in kind of a public sense is King James Demonology. It's a great book. It's of course of a witch hunting testimony than anything. But demonologists back in the time of King James were witch hunters. And of course, one is presented in the Crucible, even though that's of course fictional in some aspect. But yeah, witch hunting demonologists were witch hunters back in the day, and at some point even vampire hunters during that European crusade killed up to 1 million people. Of course, that number is unknown, but they've said up to 1 million people died in Europe from these vampire and witch crusades. But so yeah, even Hammer of the Witches is another one. Mallefice Maleficarium is a good one. But there's so many of them. I have so many of my books in my library. But if somebody wants like a specific book, just message me and I'll definitely reference you. I could spend the whole show talking about what books you should read.
We do have scrolling across the bottom. We do have your website, so people can go to your website anytime, and it'd be easy to get in touch with you that way. And plus, we do have the Facebook.com/demonologyj as well going across the bottom.
Yeah, definitely. Facebook's probably the best way. Or the website, because it goes to my email when I. So either the best way.
So you mentioned earlier that you like to help people. So how do you get to that point where you're helping somebody? Does it happen at like you're just on a regular, oops, we lost him.
Uh-oh. Let me see here. Oh, he's back here again here in a moment here. There we go.
No, I switched back to my computer. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry for the
No problem.
I'd rather look at a big screen than a small screen trying to wince at.
Yeah.
I like to read people's mouths because I have sometimes a bad time hearing.
Okay. So you mentioned before that you like to help people, or that you helped a lot of people. Take us through that. Like, does it start out that people contact you specifically for this kind of thing? Or is it like you're doing a ghost hunt and you notice something sinister?
So more so people reach out to me, either if it's the client or family of the member of the person that's being affected, or seems to be more of a chunk of the time a paranormal team that reaches out to me. They're dealing with somebody, they come across something they don't understand or they think might be more malevolent, malicious, or sinister, or insidious. And they tend to contact me because they know or have heard of my background or heard me talk on these radio shows or seen me lecture. So they think of me in mind. Or what will happen is they'll reach out to a fellow demonologist, and let's say they're the clients in Massachusetts, and they're reaching out to a demonologist in New York or California. I have a good rapport with a lot of people. So what they'll do is they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, James, I have this case. Can you look into it for me? It's in Massachusetts. It's closer to you. You'll be able to help them better." So that seems to be what occurs more so of the time. A lot of people individually, that's the, I call as a client, the one that's supposed to be being afflicted, the demoniac or whatever, the person that's dealing with the attachment. Usually when the person reaches out to me that is dealing with the issue, I unfortunately tend to see that it's something else, because especially with demonic, unless they've been told and somehow they've gone through the course of action of kind of coming to of what they're understanding and dealing with. Most of the time when you're dealing with a demon at an early stage, they don't know it's a demon.
Right.
So I have a stage of interview process that I deal with my clients to kind of sift through what could be mental illness, what could be a spiritual issue, what could be an intention issue, what could be a haunting that's maybe not malevolent, but something maybe trying to communicate with them. I tend to see a lot of people have abilities, and they're like deacons, and they open up. And I think we all have a third eye. It's this sixth sense. I think we all have the senses, and there's reasons why these things become maladaptive or adaptive to who we are as an individual. But so I think a lot of these people don't understand what's going on. And I'm also a student of psychology. I have like 6 more, maybe 7 more classes until I have my bachelor's degree in psychology. But so I always relate it to somebody that's dealing with something that they can't see. It's like the wind, like the bush, right? If the bush moves, most people will tend to believe through physiological reaction that fight, fright, or flight, that there's an animal in the bush, and they're gonna flee or they're gonna fight it. But most of the time, it's going to be the wind that's actually moving the brush or the bush, and we tend to jump to the worst case scenario when we don't understand what's going on, and that seems to be what I deal with more so than anything. But I try to ease these people. I never try to come up with a conclusion and then tell them this is what it is. One thing the paranormal is it's a hypothesis. It's unknown. It's a theory. We really truly don't know how these things occur, what a demon is, what a ghost is, what a poltergeist is, what parapsychology is, if PK actually exists. But we have good ideas because of how long people have observed this. 44% of people believe in ghosts in America. That's a huge number. And so we have ideas. But the thing is, we don't have no facts. There's no empirical evidence that mandates that this is what a ghost is. This is why people go somewhere after they die. So I try never to give it a conclusion to the individual. I say, okay, yes, I experienced something, and this is how you can handle it. This is how you retake over your life. This is what we can do to help you, but you also have to help yourself too. You can take medication every day, but that one day you don't take medication and you stop your medication, then your issue comes back, right? So I try to always have a logical explanation for these people, because in reality, everybody thinks it's magic. This is
Right.
Harry Potter. I come in with a wand, Elioso, and the spirits or their issues are gone. It's just not how it happens. So that's how I do my best to help people. But yeah, my 3-point interview phase, which is email interview, a phone interview, and a physical interview, tends to really able to see what the red flags are, or how to kind of deal with the case. And I deal with a lot of mental health professionals too, like the main ministry that I run. We have a psychotherapist who is a clinical director of like 120 different people, and is also a professor at the University of Maine. And I work with other psychotherapists and mental health specialists that I tend to employ if I ever feel like there's a red flag in the mental health department. Because in reality, even though they might have a mental health issue, that doesn't detract away from that. They could have a spiritual issue too. But
Right.
you have to deal with the physical, the biological, and the mental health before you can tackle the spiritual. Because if you can't take care of yourself, then how are you going to take care of something that's external?
Yeah, definitely. Good point there. Do you think a lot of the ones that you get, do you think a lot of it is maybe more of a mental thing versus like an actual demonology kind of case?
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And when I say mental too, it doesn't mean, I also believe, parapsychology. I do love it.
Mhm.
I have my love hate relationship with it. Like, I'm good friends with Dr. Elliot Van Hoosen, who is the leader of PPRI. He's a doctor of social sciences, and it's a group that also has a doctor of psychology. PPRI is what you said at the beginning of my bio. Great group. They're out of Canada, and there's a New England branch that I'm a part of. Um, I have a love hate relationship with parapsychology because all the modern foundation of it was found by a botanist, J.P. Ryan, and he was never a doctor in social sciences. He was a doctor in vegetables and plants, which gives no correlation to the mental stability of individuals.
Right.
So I have my love hate relationship of it because a lot of it is a pseudoscience,
Mhm.
but a lot of the paranormal is as well. But one thing I do tend to believe in within parapsychology is that psychokinesis can be possibly a thing. That because I feel like as somebody that sets a goal for themselves, right? A goal of being an entrepreneur and starting a business, or a goal of completing college, or a goal of being a good parent, or achieving something in your life. You put that in your mind, you're most likely going to achieve your goals. That's why people say goal setting is important, because it gives you something to focus on. So now I think that if people are so entangled in something paranormal being there, I think where we get to the realm of a construct, the artificial intelligence, egregore, and a lot of these other terms that can be used as something as, or even poltergeist. I think that tend to maybe contracts can be possible if somebody believes in it so much, and there's multiple people that come in, maybe experience something unknowingly. Maybe there's something like Philip experiment that comes involved, where something of creation can then finally project itself in a physical state and maybe gain intelligence. And I think that could be something that happens as well, because if it festers within somebody for a long time, then what says it cannot become something that's in truth and reality for multiple people? And I kind of relate that to like another psychology reference, is that like if people are doing hard drugs, right?
Mhm.
And or are in a household with a lot of black mold, there is a thing called shared hallucination, right? And shared hallucination, even though you both are physiologically different, you both took the drug and you're not linked, you both can have the same hallucination, the same kind of episode. As you can see in Harold and Kumar and the crazy stuff that they experience, it can be quite possible. So same thing with people that are entangled in somebody that believes that there is paranormal phenomenon going on within themselves and externally. This can become a shared experience as well, and they start to see it and feel it, and it becomes entangled in their life as well. So there's a lot of quite a possibilities. There's a lot of theories in this field, and
Mhm.
it's the paranormal is more modern in the sense of the way we use it, but how people have tackled this kind of spirituality phenomena has been around since ancient Greece, Mesopotamian times, which is far predates ancient Greece. And we've had this spiritual kind of pull in a long time. Even the troglodytes have cave paintings of some spiritual matter in their lives, and it's pretty interesting to see that throughout civilization we've had these moments. And it's hard to say it doesn't exist. It's hard to say aliens don't exist, but this expanded universe of many unknown things, and it's hard to say that life doesn't exist. It might not look like us, could be the size of plankton or something else, but it's hard to say that after all these experiences and all these people what they've experienced that it doesn't exist. But there's also the theory that after so long, it's like a myth. Once a myth is put out into the ethos, it gets spun many different ways. It gains its own traction, many different stories of how this thing occurs, and it could be passed down by that as well. And this is hard. This is not paranormal, but one thing I tell people to look into when they're dealing with something like a curse or something they think like that might have been passed down to them is something called epigenetics. And epigenetics is a genetics that can take memories of individual from the past in your family line, your mother, your grandfather, so on and so on, and those memories can be passed along to you. Mm-hmm. And so if those memories of that person being cursed or having paranormal phenomena in their mind occurred, then it is quite possible that the person that eventually is like myself could believe I'm dealing with that because it's something within our genetics. And it's scary to think that, but it's quite possible. A lot of great science on that, and I can't say that's empirical, but it's science. And right. There's been a lot of lab work and articles written by very smart people about it.
That's amazing. I never thought of the possibility that you could learn from your ancestors that way by stuff being like passed down to you, experiences they had.
That's why past life is quite a possibility. That's why I don't believe in reincarnation. It's just my opinion. Some other people might, but I think if the memories of a loved one that we never knew can be passed down, those moments of you having those consciousness memories through a dream state or even awake state, like daydreaming, can be quite possible. And I think that has a lot more to do with that phenomenon than anything. But also, like somebody like Carl Jung has a lot of great research with shadow self and all that stuff. And of course, Sigmund Freud with ego and all that stuff. Even though Freudian psychology is a little bit not really like nowadays, it's a little archaic to the modern psychology. But a lot of these brilliant minds that really understand the human mind and some capability says, okay, this is why these things can happen. And neuroscience has expanded quite dramatically. And there's things like neurotheology, which is quite interesting. How there might be, like the thoric. No, I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher it. But there's a part of our brain that has a faith capability, right? That's been documented as well, that we have faith because it's a part of our brain function. And a lot of people, neurotheologists say that is our connection to God. It's which is quite fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get back on directly on the demonic thing.
Sorry,
No.
It's all fascinating stuff. People need to know this stuff to get into demonology. Everybody thinks it's just about reading books and having a one-sided opinion in Christianity. I've studied multiple different religions since the heyday of animism, which is the first religion. And people need to know this stuff if they're going to deal with people or deal with the demonic, because the demonic predates Christianity.
Right.
It predates modern religions like Hinduism, which is the oldest modern day religion by 4,400 years old. It predates all this stuff. You have to know this stuff. You have to know the human body. You have to know the human mind. what its capabilities are, and that is what makes a good demonologist.
I definitely agree. And you answered a lot of questions I had along the way, coming up down the line here on the outline I had drawn up.
Mind reader.
That's awesome. Yes, you are indeed a mind reader. But and I agree with you on what you just said about you got to know all this other stuff. And I think it's good that you look for other causes too. For you don't just jump into it's demonic. How can I find something to prove it's demonic?
Yeah,
that's awesome. But also, can you tell us about the steps along the way that have to be done by a demonic entity for possession and possibly the hierarchy of demons?
So I kind of lingered on that one topic for a long time. So what I'll do is I'll say in an aspect for possession occur. There's three stages. There's more stages, but the three stages most people linger on is infestation, which is the demonic getting involved with the family, the location, and infesting, like kind of a rat infestation. It comes pestering. Sometimes it shows off. Most of the times, it shows off as a normal haunting, maybe an appearance of a loved one or a person that has empathetic kind of nature. Like they come in for a reason, like to show love or be friendly. And then once the person or people start to communicate or kind of entice into the situation where, okay, something's going on, give into it and acknowledge it, that's when an individual, that the demonic tends to see that maybe is the person with the most trauma or the person that's more communicative of this entity tends to start being oppressed. Now, the second stage, oppression, is when this individual starts to be told that you're not good enough, nobody loves you. If they never did drugs or drank alcohol, they start to drink alcohol, do drugs, and they start to do a 180 of how they are at that current point before the demonic entity. And basically, to get to possession through oppression is basically a breaking of free will happens and an invitational occurs. And some people say, oh, well, the person invites the demon in. Well, not necessarily. Sometimes it can be that sense, and where they invite the entity in because they want the power or they're doing dark ritual. And that's something called obsession. That's another stage in the oppression line, obsession. But oppression, basically, once they do that 180 and they feel like nobody loves them, they don't love themselves anymore, they lose that self-esteem and their connection to God, if they had any connection to any kind of higher power or God, is they basically give that invitational. And that invitational can be, like I said, inviting, say, come into me, or it could be, I can't do this anymore. I give up. I don't know how many, kind of like a suicide attempt. Somebody says, I can't do this anymore, and they try to attempt to take their life. But in this sense, they emotionally and physically give up. Mostly emotionally, and spiritually. It's kind of like a kind of like 3-notch thing, but mostly spiritually and emotionally they give up, and that's when the demonic entity is able to then take over and where it becomes possession. Now, to break down possession, there's 2 stages of possession. There's transient possession, which where the demonic entity comes and goes because the battle of free will is there. The person has not fully demoralized. So the fact that they still have some sort of connection to God, they still have some sort of connection to themselves. So when they fight internally, consciously, they kick the demonic entity out. When their whole being is to themselves, they have control of their motor skills, their functionality, their thought. And when they lose that ability to, and being oppressed or demeaned or maybe in a stage of exorcism or deliverance, where they're being invoked for the demonic spirit to come, then of course the possession occurs. Now, the stage that happens a lot more rarely, and is also is a very emergency situation, is true possession or full possession. And true and full possession is basically the stage where there is no return in reality. If you get it early, there could be quite a possibility that the person is able to come back and regain their consciousness. But when full and true possession occurs, basically the free will has been fully demoralized, fully cracked, and the demonic spirit has full control of the individual, and the person is no longer able to fight, and they're able to basically, in that sense, are a vegetable. Now, that consciousness is kicked out, and the demonic spirit, soul, or whatever you want to call it, entity, has full control of the body and thought pattern of the meat bag that we are, and they're able to control us. And that's true of full possession. It's very rare, not many documentations of such, but what basically happens in true perfect possession, or full possession, is basically the body will start to deteriorate because of the negativity within the confines of the individual, and most likely the human host or the body will probably die not too much afterwards, because the human body will react as our stress or anxiety in our life maybe will activate cancer cells in our body or other health issues. That's what will probably tend to happen with the human body, with the demonic entity consuming the full body and its functionality, controllability of it. So, and that's why it's very dangerous if it ever gets to that situation, because there's really no return. I'm not saying there isn't, but there's a high probability that person is probably going to be gone, and the person's probably going to die. A lot of people say Annalise McCall got to that level because she died of malnutrition. She, of course, there was a whole court case of that. The first documented court case in history. The second being Arnie Johnson here in America, and basically they said throughout the exorcism she wasn't able to take any food or liquids in, and basically she eventually died because of malnutrition. And they basically said she became so entwined with this demonic entity that it had fully taken over, and she was no longer able to consume, and she died.
Wow.
And,
Now
and that story is based on Emily Rose, Exorcism of Emily Rose,
Mhm.
for people that don't know.
Have you ever dealt with a person being fully possessed like that?
So yes, I have, unfortunately have. So in my time, 16 years of doing this, I've only come, and I say only lightly because it's still horrifying. I've only come across 3 demonic possessions in my time.
Right.
5 cases in total. 3 of
Okay.
those 5 were possessions. So 5 cases in 16 years. And it is rare. It very is much so rare. And of course, in my opinion, in my diagnostics of it, in my analytical aspect of it, but 3. And those 3 cases, one wasn't able to be helped by me. They were sectioned off from the psych ward because of misunderstanding. 2, one I was able to help through deliverance, and then another one was I brought the Catholic Church in, and exorcism was done. I never know if they were helped after that, because once the Roman Catholic Church gets in, you get pushed out of the case.
Yeah.
So I did my groundwork, and my groundwork is what was necessary for them to come in. And I'm pretty sure it went well, because I have good faith like that. Sometimes it doesn't, of course, but so yeah, 3, and they were life changing. My first one ever is what really basically solidified that the demons do exist, and really didn't scare me in the sense that I don't want to do this again. It actually empowered my faith. It made me have that full emphasis that God does exist, demons do exist, good and evil does occur in life, and it really catapulted me. And my first demonic case was the demonic possession.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you actually, can you tell it? Did you actually participate in any? So you actually avoid the hair raising stuff then, I guess, which is good for you though.
Well, I don't avoid the hair raising stuff. It's
Oh.
just a rarity. I think a lot of people tend to jump to it's demonic and don't understand they don't peel back the onion enough. It's easy to say it's something worse than something it's not, because, like I said, it's easier to explain something as evil. When people get scratched, They don't understand the difference between a demonic scratch and a human spirit, or projected scratch, or even a self scratch. And a lot of times when people get scratched, it's just a form of communication, or it's a scare tactic. Now, when you get scratched by a demonic, there won't be any information. It'll be like you got cut by 3 razor blades. And if you ever cut yourself with a razor blade, you bleed profusely, and eventually through the healing process, it has inflammation, red marks, because that's the skin healing. But when you cut yourself originally, there's no inflammation. Now, if you scratch yourself right now, the reason you have inflammation when you scratch yourself is because of the pressure of your physical finger, right? It's the pressure that's creating the redness, and you see the scratch. That's a human scratch or a spirit scratch, because at one point that spirit had a human body, if it was human, and they are probably giving off the emanation of human contact or physical contact. So a lot of people tend to get scratched and they jump to the worst case scenario, and I tend to see this a lot. And a lot of people that are demonologists don't have the same perspective as I do. Some believe every spirit's a demon, and you shouldn't talk to spirits. But I don't come from that background. I don't believe in that. I respect their opinions, and I will have worked with them. Like Keith Johnson, the prime example. I love the man to death. He's brilliant. 50 years of doing this. And his ideologies have changed throughout time, but I don't agree with his current ideology. Maybe I haven't come across something like he has, or been fooled something like he has. But I come at it at a different angle as well. And I definitely think that it's not that I avoid it. I think it's just a lot more rare than a lot of people tend to kind of credit it as. You see all this movies. These movies are all basis. There's one coming out October. It looks so amazing. It's called Prey of Evil. Yeah, Prey of the Devil. Pray for the Devil. Pray for the Devil. And it looks amazing. But because of these movies, people think it's more prolific and outwardly than it is. Before The Exorcist came out in 1973, a lot of people in American culture did not know what exorcisms or demonic possession was. And then Exorcism came out, and it started a whole kind of tidal wave of this understanding. And now Ouija boards are evil and spirit boards are evil. It started all this. And a lot of it has a lot to do with that movie. So it's not that I avoid it. I'm able to decipher it differently. And it's not that I'm perfect. I think I've just been able to help people without labeling it as a demonic entity.
And I agree. You certainly have to do a thorough inspection and make sure that's what it is too.
Yeah, of course.
We also have a question for you. Cindy Finn asks, James, are you acquainted with the Madagascar Lutheran Church where people are being exorcised and coming to Christ?
Yeah, there's also, I'm not specific with the Madagascar Lutheran Church, but I'm specific. I know, like I said, I was raised in the Lutheran Church when I was growing up. And I do know, of course, like Pentecostal and Baptist kind of approaches to exorcisms. I honestly don't agree with them. Like a Bob Larson, I don't like. I think he's a fraud, unfortunately, and somebody might say the same about me. But unfortunately, I don't believe in those mass rituals they do at their congregations. I think a lot of it's a shared hallucination. I like to kind of equate it to. I like to kind of go to pop culture a lot because a lot of people tend to understand it because they watch movies. But one of my favorite shows is True Blood. It's a vampire show, and I forget her name, but it's an African American woman, Tara, and she's one of the main characters. And her mother has an alcoholic problem, right? And she feels like it's the demons within her. The discussion about inner demons, and she gets an exorcism done on her, and through kind of like a psychodrama, she's able to relieve of these demons, and she stops drinking alcohol. She believes it works. So a lot of what the churches do they tend to realize that these people have their inner demons, their anxieties, the stresses, their alcoholic issues, the drug issues. And one of the first men to do exorcisms as a form of psychotherapy was Hippocrates. He's the father of medicine, and we have a lot to thank for him of how our medicine has gotten to the way we have. But he performed exorcisms as a form of psychotherapy, and a lot of the times what these churches do are psychotherapeutic. They're doing a shared hallucination. They're doing the lay of hands. These people are shaking, and the demons are coming out of them. I'm not saying it doesn't always work, but also, like I said back earlier, a lot of this has a lot to do with how you overcome it mentally. And when you're dealing with a demon, there's a lot to do with it mentally as well. I tell a lot of people that after they're done with the demonic case, if it is and my five case is a prime example of this, or even people that are dealing with it, where it's an attachment or some sort of haunting, or maybe even it's in themselves that's projecting this. I tell them to reach out to a therapist and talk to somebody. I can be there as spiritual guidance. I can speak to them, but I'm not a mental health professional, and I don't want to say something that's going to be detrimental to them, that's going to create more trauma in their life. Mm-hmm. So they've gone through all this trauma. There's a thing called post-traumatic stress disorder, mm-hmm. and it does exist. And I do feel like a lot of these people that have overcome a haunting tend to develop PTSD or anxiety or some sort of phobia or even panic disorder. And they really should receive the help on that avenue as well. So there's many things to check off. But yeah, no, definitely. I think a lot of it's, like I said, what you have to take into it. And if it works for people, I'm not saying that it's bad, right? What I'm saying is, if what is bad, like Bob Larson charges people, but what is bad is if you're going to see people that charge people. I don't agree with it. I do everything free of charge. I have a day job that I have that pays my bills, puts a roof over men. I will never exploit people because that's not why I do it.
Right.
If you're going to get charged thousands of dollars to be rid of something, run away. All they're going to do is take your money, and you're going to be still left with your issues.
Right.
I can imagine too. You got to be very careful, like you said, or what you say, it can be misinterpreted by the person as well.
Yeah.
Along the way to cause some trouble. Yeah, or more trouble after.
Mm-hmm.
Also, tell us about your podcast, True Evil.
So it's on a hiatus right now because my fellow podcastee, my partner in crime, Laura Brand, who is a criminologist and the expert on the Toolbox Killers, who are two serial killers out in California, and she also is, like I said, a criminologist. So she's very involved in serial killers and just had a study come out for the academic and police, law enforcement. And she is a brilliant individual. I love her very much. She's a great friend of mine. And True Evil tackles kind of the basis of, do evil, like evil entities, interfere with these people that have a psychosis issue, that have been prolific serial killers, or do they not? Because there have been individuals like the son of Sam who said that they were influenced. Arnie Johnson, even though not a serial killer, he did kill his friend Bono, and he said he was influenced by the demonic. There have been people like Charles Manson and other cult leaders that have been influenced, they say, by some sort of higher power or maybe even lower power in our conceiving of mind. So True Evil kind of takes the nature of observing it in both the psychology kind of realm and in the theological realm. And we take both of our extensive backgrounds of what she does and what I do, and we combine it, and we talk to the individuals that either have dealt with it or are experts on similar situations. And that's what our show is. It's kind of like a podcast version of one of my favorite shows, Evil. And I love that show. It's a great show. And it's kind of like a podcast form of it. That's how we discuss in that forum. You know, we take many different avenues. I don't think, actually, I know a lot of the serial killers out there weren't ever influenced by a demonic entity, but it's great to talk about it because a lot of people do tend to think about it. A lot of people tend to think one of the greatest serial killers out there, Hitler, Adolf Hitler, massacred a lot of people. A lot of people tend to say he was kind of influenced by the devil, or just he had a vision. Very intelligent man, but crazy. And most intelligent people are crazy, actually. You know, he wasn't influenced by the devil, because there's a lot of traits that show he wasn't. It's just a lot of things that mentally that were occurring, and of course his childhood as well. It's great to kind of like be on the pendulum of both sides of it, because any kind of intuitive discussion or debate. And debate is, unfortunately, people can't debate nowadays because it gets to a very atrocious kind of point of view. But a debate is a great thing, especially when it's a healthy debate. So it's great to talk about both different topics, because that's how we learn. It's how we understand. That's why philosophers debate all the time, and it's how we got into a lot of philosophical views that we have nowadays, because they debated and then agreed. You know.
To go back just a little bit on something, can you tell us what you do for a living? Not necessarily who you work for, what you do for a living, anyway.
Yeah. So no, definitely. So what I do is, I think something that actually relates to the paranormal field very well is I actually in the HVAC field and also plumbing field as well. I started off as a field worker. I was a sheet metal mechanic by trade, so duct work. You know, I am of course very kind of I love ductwork. I go into stores, I look at ductwork, but I'm all about air movement, infiltration, exfiltration. And currently, what I do right now is I'm a project manager and an estimator. I've worked my way up. I've been in the field about 9 years, so I'm a boss now. But so yeah, no, I take a lot of the heating, venting, air conditioning, and refrigeration aspect of it into looking at people's houses, and the plumbing aspect of it too, because I want to look at people's air handlers, furnaces. I want to look at if their flue pipes are maybe dry fitted, so maybe CO2. If there's black mold in their ductwork systems, if there's black mold in general, if there's infiltration, which is air coming in from the crevices of a house because of certain things, but also because of my construction background, people tend to forget older houses breathe because they're not as well insulated, and they actually breathe. They actually come in, come out due to the weather, heat or cool. You know, wood warps if you walk on it, also warps if the heat or cool. That's why I said your wood floor should never go below 65, because if not, they warp. So I look into all these things because of my construction background, and I take that. If people feel uneasy, I take a level to a floor. This is why you feel uneasy, because this floor is kind of giving you a kind of like equilibrium, and a lot of equilibrium will tend to give you hallucinations eventually in time. So will black mold and some other things. So I take this construction background and I apply it to the paranormal realm as well.
What do you have coming for upcoming appearances?
So I have a lot of appearances. Some I don't actually know off the top of my head, but I know at end of August, August 26th, I am in Gettysburg for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which is a fundraiser for the Wounded Warriors. I'm a former veteran. I was in the Army myself. And so I love that, of course, fundraising event. In September, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, the 18th, at the Black Swan Inn for their Parafest there. I'm also doing a fundraising event for suicide prevention at the Wildwood Sanatorium in New York, sometime in September as well. October, I'm going to be in Vulture City, Arizona for Vulture City Paracon. I'm going to be as well at the very first Paracon in Sleepy Hollow, New York. Of course, everybody knows the Sleepy Hollow legend of the Headless Horseman. And then my big one that I'm very excited about, and I hope it's still going on. I haven't heard much of it, but I'm pretty sure it'll happen. There's a country in between Ukraine and Romania, Moldova, and I'm supposed to actually be one of 3 tour guides for Romania, like Vlad Castle, Bron Castle, Vlad's Fortress, Hotel Transylvania. It'll be Patty Negri, myself, and Father Sebastian, who would be the tour guides in Romania for a 10-day tour, which is in November. Tickets are still on sale. They're, of course, not cheap, but it's also cheaper it would be than you would book it yourself. And plus, we have a tour guide that will bring us to many different great locations in Romania, where not only in Romania is, of course, spiritualism very heavy with the gypsy culture and witch culture there, but there's Strogai, which is their vampire legend, which is one of the very first vampire legends in history, is still very prolific there. They still actually believe in the Strogai, the vampires there. So I'm excited about that. So that's in November, November 5th to, I forget, like the 11th or 17th or something like that. So also, I can't forget to shout out Sam Baltrusis is running Vast Paracon November 4th in Massachusetts. I can't think of where off the top of my head, but that's the day before I leave, and I'm a part of that as well. But I'm part of many more events, but those are some of the few that I could think of off the top of my head. I'm booked. I'm booked solid starting September through November.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't see much on the website. Sorry about that.
My website's outdated, to be honest with you. I do all my managing of like all my events. I do all of my website design, and I have so many things on my plate. So sometimes the website might take a little bit to be updated, but I do everything myself, and sometimes when you do that, it gets a little hectic.
Oh, I certainly understand. I can see that. All right. Oh, we are about out of time. I want to thank our guest, paranormal investigator, demonologist, Catholic Deacon James Annitto. His website is jamesannitto.com. It's also scrolling across the bottom. And his Facebook account is facebook.com/demonologyj. Our next show will be August 4th, in which we'll have Jack Carey on. He's from the Paranormal Intelligence Agency. We'll be talking Men in Black and Black-Eyed Children. August 18th, we'll have on Shannon Rogers from A Ghost Ruined My Life, and she's also the owner of Paranormal Explorations of America. September 1st, we'll have Kieran O'Keefe, who's a parapsychologist from the UK show Most Haunted. If you like the broadcast, consider helping us out by liking and sharing. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in and watching on Facebook, or by giving a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and sharing on YouTube. If you watch us far, don't forget to also hit the bell to be notified of future broadcasts for YouTube. Thank you. We appreciate all of you. Liz, do you have anything to add?
Thank you so much, James, for coming on with us tonight. Yeah. And if you want to hang out for a little bit, I'm sure we have other stuff to talk about. Yeah, I actually want to share a story with you if you have a couple seconds after we log out.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that as well, James. Do you have anything to add for the audience?
No, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully there's a part 2.
Awesome. All right. Again, we will return August 4th, and so long.
You've been watching Paranormal Files Into the Darkness, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.